Welcome to the Story Studio podcast. So, yeah. So, apparently we're supposed to have a topic today. That's what I heard.
What?
Um,
That's a terrible idea.
can we talk about how Dave is outproducing me right now?
I would like to talk about that, actually. That could be a whole show.
There's been a lot of congratulations recently on, for CI for wrapping its final in the queue project, like closing its last box. And I'm simultaneously congratulatory and like, well, fuck me, basically.
But Dave's been a little bit, well, fuck me for like 5 years, right?
Right. I mean, it's my turn, to be fair.
Dave, are you just excited about this? Dave, when you found out that Johnny was suffering a little bit of malaise, were you pretty happy? Like, just tell the truth.
Actually not. No, not at all.
Not even a little bit. Were
No.
you like, oh, thank God it's not just me?
No.
I'm happy when others are suffering. So
That's because you're a monster.
right.
You're Patrick Bateman.
Who's the real monster here?
So what did you feel empathy? Like, how did you feel? I'm actually curious now. I was kidding before, but now I'm curious.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if like when somebody that's known for performing stumbles, that only makes me think, well, fuck, I'm going to stumble even worse now. Like,
Oh, okay. Okay, so it was about
So
you.
you made it personal,
Okay,
right?
okay, got it, right. Okay. See, I thought you were just being empathetic towards Johnny, and I was really impressed.
I was
that
also
too.
expecting a Viagra joke when we start talking about performance.
No, definitely. I'm concerned for John. No, it's not all about me because I don't really see it that way. I think I fixed the thing that was broken with me. So I guess now we got to fix Johnny.
Well, I mean, I think I'm on the road to being fixed. Honestly, I've been.
You neutered.
Yeah. I'm on there. I might as well. Right? I've got all the kids I need. But I don't know. It's a weird sort of thing because I tend to be like very introspective and I'm very curious about what I'm thinking, which is kind of a weird way to think, but it's true. Like, why is this hard to write? So like what I was working on was just super fun before I took a vacation. And then I came back from a vacation. It was like, who farted, basically. I couldn't although before that it was tricky too. And I think that was because, I don't know, sitting here in front of this computer in this office became like this weird little, I mean, people working in steel mills are going to hate me for this, but a weird little pressure cooker, right? Like it was just, I don't know, it wasn't fun. It was the other side of our business. And I was doing that to the exclusion of everything else. And I think I got some negative triggers.
Well,
So
there was a lot of times in the last, I don't know, month where you almost had the unfortunate, you had,
it was a series of unfortunate events.
Well, I'm going to say this is Sophie's choice, but we're really over dramatizing what it's like to be a writer right now.
Right. Did you know there's nothing harder in the world than writing, including brain surgery?
I've heard that. I heard some old fucker in California say that one time. Yeah, I don't know. Like there were a bunch of times in the last month where you would like very specifically say, okay, I'm not real sure if I should be doing A or B. And A was always like, I don't know, scraping barnacles off your dick. And then B was like...
Wait, I'm really curious where this is going because I don't know what
B
this
is scraping them out of your
dick
ass.
barnacles.
Well, it was like you basically had all of the heavy lifting to do with a lot of admin stuff that we were doing and, not story boxes that we were closing like Dave and I were doing over at CI, but smarter artist boxes that we were closing. And a lot of just demands on your time that really were sapping your creative energy. And so your question became, does it make more sense for me to kind of try to divide my time here or just go all in on this thing that I don't kind of want to do? And
right, because if I was, basically I tend to split my time about half and half, right? So if I were to write in the mornings and then, okay, I'll do this in the afternoons, I was just like, I can just get it over with, right? Like, I just won't do fiction. I just won't do the creative stuff because then I can get this. Number one, needs to get done. But number two, I can get it out of the way faster. And just, I don't know, that code switching was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And so after a while, it just became, I don't know, it seemed like you were trying so hard to balance it. And then once you didn't have to balance it anymore and you stepped away and then you came back and it was like, Oh. And it wasn't about the navigating between the two anymore. It was just that doing the one so over the top for a sustained period of time had just left you drained. And we had a conversation earlier this week where you said it's like we're all just so tired that now we can't run the victory lap, right?
Because this is the fun part, right? This is the part where I should be throwing up my hands and going, we.
Right, because we finally
theory.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Johnny now shares an office with his wife. How often is she?
That was another change that happened around the same time. But I don't
That's
think
what it would be for Dave for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I would not share an office with anyone.
Well, the way that it is shaken out is, so basically we moved, and what I used to have before was a 3-bedroom place, and one of the bedrooms was my office. We moved to this place, and so my daughter didn't have a bedroom. She had like a cordoned off section of a larger room. And so we got a 3-bedroom place plus an office now, but the office is but there's not like a good common space. So Robin used to have her office in kind of just a corner of the living room, and because we had this big, huge open floor plan, but now there really isn't that space, and so it makes the most sense to be in here. But the way it's shaken out is she actually isn't in here a lot. She isn't in here at all when I'm composing. Like I kind of requested, can I just have that time? She takes the laptop, which the screen is working again for some reason. It wasn't for a while. And she'll go. I think that's part of it, but just the weirdness of it. And what was I going to say? I was going to say something about that. I know what it is. So it was kind of this piling on thing where like I'm doing all the piling on. So I'm not getting stuff done. This is true when I was when I was splitting my time. And so when I would ask Sean, like I'm a grown man, I should be capable of making that decision, but I was asking for permission because I have this sense of this is just something in me. I hate it when I don't feel like I'm pulling my weight. That's just one of my things. It's one of my triggers. So I inferred this sense of obligation coming mainly from Sean that I'm sure wasn't there, but I also want to step up and okay, well, I definitely needed to do the smarter artist stuff. That was absolutely required 100%. But then I felt really guilty about not delivering the fiction words, which of course, as we all know, makes it easier to write when you feel guilty and you need to perform. It's kind of
100% of the time.
Yeah. At 3 a.m. If I go to sleep right now, I can get a little more sleep. Like it's the same principle. So that vicious loop kind of occurred. And then it was like, well, now writing is associated with guilt and obligation, and I need to hurry up, and I can't hurry up, and it was this downward spiral.
Yeah, and that's worse because that's really, really difficult to pull yourself out of. It gets to be where if writing is pain, then you're everything about you mentally, physically, or you're going to try to avoid that because that's just human nature. And right. I think that's the cycle that Dave has found himself in for years, where now this feels bad and now I'm going to the desk and it feels bad again. And I know that Sean's going to be mad at me because I'm going to be late. I'm going to be mad at myself because I'm late. And, it's ugly. So Dave, I know you probably felt that towards the end, that last week when you didn't want to be behind and all of a sudden you had all this momentum. And then I think probably the last episode took you as long as like the last half of it, right? Like it just was kind of all piled. So how were you feeling during that time? And how did you like get through that where it was different? Because you didn't fall apart this time and you have before. So what was the big difference? And it's been sustained now. What are we talking? March, April, May, June. Like almost 5 months you've been sustained, which is the longest in the time I've known you. So what is the big difference this time?
Well, a lot of it is like I don't want to be that person again. So I don't want to fall back. And, you guys are sitting here praising me for all the good shit I've done. And I don't want it to be like, oh, well, Dave's back. Old Dave is back. Florida Dave is back. But also I felt a little more confidence that I could do it because, I had tools in place and I just felt a bit better about it, that I knew that, okay, and the fact that you're like, okay, I trust that, this is going well, and, it's only a week behind it. And I had also dealt with some other things during the 2 months, like my knee situation. And I didn't, like, there were times like the old me would have just fallen back.
Yeah, you never retreated. Like I was used to your
there
pattern.
Were moments where I had a lot of trouble, and like a few days where I just felt like old Dave, but I didn't want to let anybody else down, and I like delivering the thing that I'm supposed to do. And
did you have any specific habits this time that are new that you didn't do before, or that you knew were right, but you didn't do them before and you did them this time and you saw a definite positive result?
Just forcing myself through it more, I think. I'd say the only true habit that's changed the most would be that I'm not sabotaging myself by eating a lot of shit all fucking night. And I'm sure that only made things worse in the past. So like there's days I'll eat crap, but most days I don't, because I don't like feeling like crap all day and the next day and all that.
That's an interesting answer. So you were eating crap and stuff all night. You've stopped that, and that has helped your writing and job performance.
Yeah, because because I am diabetic, and when I eat crap, there's like hours of just feeling like crap. And
yeah, but it's not just being a diabetic. Like that shit messes with your brain. Like,
but I mean, also like the elevated blood sugar, and I'm sure Johnny knows, you just feel very, very tired. And so, yes, I
feel off. Yeah.
Feeling a little bit better helps me be able to perform.
Are you being more aware of your basic like behaviors and patterns than you feel like you were in the past?
Yes. And I'm more conscious of time now than I was before.
In what way? Like while you're writing, or just during the day, or like how much time you're leaving for work versus other things?
A little bit, all of it. I'm just like before. It was when I didn't pay attention to time, it was easier to fall behind. Like, okay, well, I can fix this later. But
do you mean like as far as the stories that you tell yourself? Like, oh, I can do this in X amount of time, even though there's no basis in reality for that. It's just like you feel like you can do it.
Maybe, I don't know. I just think I think I'm being more realistic with myself. I'm trying to think. I just feel that I know myself a little bit better, and what I'm capable of, and what I can really fuck up if I give myself the opportunity to. And
knowing yourself seems to be a big deal for anybody.
So, Johnny, you've definitely made a jump. I mean, you're not back where you want to be, but I don't think you're as...
It feels a lot better. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think another thing that and this is already rectified, like this is that lag time, this is that marathon but don't want to do the victory lap thing, is one of my things is I like to feel like I'm in control of kind of my own destiny. And so any sort of a partnership is going to strain that a little bit, just because you aren't the only captain anymore. And this would, I think, exacerbated. I've obviously spent some time thinking about this. This is, I get in my own head, is the company kind of became something that I never wanted. It's something that we all saw going wrong, and we just took time to fix it. We became more about educating, selling, creating email autoresponder funnels, managing people, managing a big staff. And like, I still have my org chart over here trying to make sense of all of this instead of like writing stories. And so Sterling and Stone as a whole became its own trigger. And so it was like, okay, so now I'm working, and what's going to go wrong now? And who's going to need all my attention now? And, Sean, you and I were having conflicts because we were running a company that, I don't know, it had a lot more moving pieces. There were a lot more to figure out. And I didn't want to get into that sort of thing. And so realizing now that, okay, well, we're going back to where we started a little bit. Obviously it's bigger, it's better. We have more people. We are managing people, but it's different. It's a lot closer to what it was when it was literally just the three of us, and more specifically, writing wise, what it was when it was just the two of us for the books, rather than like, I mean, as an example, like our meetings, like what happened with our meetings.
Well, our meetings used to be all about story. Like that's what we
As
met
in
for.
way back.
Right. Like we only met to talk about story. We were like, okay, what's going to happen with our trusty unicorn this time? Like it really was that. It was designing political systems for the beam, or, you know, laughing our asses off with adult video. Like it was just party time. Like it was just story. And then as we built out the company, really the first Smarter Artist Summit is what changed it. Because even before then, it was like all story, and then like, hey, what if we do this thing, or what if we do that thing?
It was a total sideline.
Yeah, it was the sideline. And then after that, the response was just so great, and we just felt really driven to, all right, well, let's double down on this. And it was a slow creep. Like it was a very, very slow creep.
That's also Dave's stripper name.
It didn't happen overnight at all. But all of a sudden, 2 years later, 3 years later, no, it was really like within a year later, I think the warning signs were first there. But I think
I remember having conflict before the last Austin Film Festival. Like that's what I remember, but it was going back a few before that. So it has been a couple of years, but like you said, it's been a creep, and it's had its ups and its downs. And we kind of just realized about 6 months ago that like, oh, okay, we shouldn't be.
Well, now it's off the rails because it was hard, because it's not that the money was always enough to kind of justify it. Like it would come in and it would pay for staff enough to get us through the next little bit of time and our next initiative. So in the early days, the money wasn't good. It didn't justify us doing it, but it didn't.
From the Smarter Artist, you mean?
Right. Money from fiction was always fine. It was the Smarter Artist leg. It was hard to justify, but not enough to kind of turn it down. But it was really the time and emotional spend. But that's a really intangible thing. And on the other hand, we're getting all these like kudos and accolades and thank yous and people telling us that we're changing their lives. And that becomes really gratifying, and it's something that you want to feed yourself with, you know, and we did. Like it felt really good to do that. It's an
entrepreneur's playground. Like fiction is hard to figure out. You know, like education, like anything that tends toward like our copywriting, internet marketing backgrounds, like that's easy. Like it's an infinite. Well, it turned out not to be easy because we had a foot in two worlds, but the way. But
that's exactly it. If we decided to be the education guys and we wanted to do that, that was our full-time business. And we decided that we don't really want to tell stories. What we really want to do is educate. We could do that all day, but that would be our business. It was straddling the line made it impossible to play full out and be, 100% in either arena. So we're not really running a profitable education business. It's still being treated kind of like a sideline, even though it has sidelined our fiction business. And so fiction is less profitable and less fun because we're over there. And so the rewards continue to get smaller and smaller. The conflict continued to get higher and higher. And then we said, okay, well, clearly this isn't what we want to be doing. And now the company is really fun because all of the things that we're actually doing to build ourselves forward are really straightforward. They're all about telling stories better, telling stories faster, telling stories with more fluid collaboration, more seamless world building, making sure our tools are proper. We got Story Shop off of our plate onto somebody else's so that we can do what we do best, which is strategize what it should be and help it to grow, but not be in any of the day-to-day weeds. So we've actually cleared all that stuff, and that's it. We ran the marathon, but now it's like, all right, we got to catch our breath. We've got storytellers on staff. We've got amazing content for coming out, and even our education now is streamlined. So it's really just the Stone Table, which it's much, much easier to do that when that's all we're doing. And so that's all to say that it's at a place now where Johnny really could be in his playground. He's kind of been waiting for this exact thing
But now
since he moved to Austin. And now he's like, fuck, I don't want to do this. So, but he does want to do it. It's a matter of,
yeah, I mean, there's what you consciously think, and then there's the way that your brain and body responds. I mean, I kept my head down like right up until I took a vacation. And then I thought, okay, I had a week off. I'm going to come back fresh. I'm going to be excited. The opposite happened. And the analogy that I've been using when we talked about this before is it's like you get used to, if let's say your house has a smell, you get used to it. And then you go and you come back and you're like, fuck, this place stinks. So that's kind of what it was, is I was just
Those dead bodies do add up.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's the basement again. So when I came back, then it was much harder. It was like, oh man, I finally got away from this. And here it is again. And meanwhile, this is very different. I mean, I did have loose ends to clean up, but it wasn't like arduous. I mean, so what I've been doing is, because I do feel like I'm getting better here. Some of it's returning, and I'm curious to hear what you did, Dave.
Wait, just real quick, I think it's worth pointing this out because I think that it's seasonal. I think if you're creative, you are going to have seasons. You know, I think I'm the peppiest, most optimistic in the company just by nature. And even I have my shit times. Everybody has their shit times. Johnny is known for performing, and it's a low point for him. You know, Dave is known for not necessarily being strong in the situation, and he's been a powerhouse lately. He's really seen himself through, you know, and I have ebbs and flows. So I think that it's important to understand that that's just part of being a creative producer.
Well, by season, you mean summer. You got family around, and they just ruin everything.
Well, it does change the schedule. I do feel more, because you wouldn't think of me as like a guilty person, like somebody who's but I am in a subtle way. So like if my kids are out there, I feel guilty when I'm in here. Now, it doesn't matter that I should be working all day and that they're just watching fucking YouTube. It still is like, well, normally they're not there. Normally I don't feel like I should be spending time with them. But then on the flip side, I feel guilty because I feel like, you know, Sean's expecting me to do something or whatever.
Well, right. Like remember one of the things that first started like tilting your schedule differently was when you moved here and your children were going to school, which hadn't been a thing before. You could just stay in your office and kind of be sequestered in there, get your words done, and then emerge into the day. But you didn't want to miss them, and they were up and they were getting ready for school and leaving the house. So that was the first time so your pattern broke back then. And, you know, and then you've got a broken pattern. You're not writing the same in the morning, and then your time is getting eaten by smarter artist stuff. It's just your entire world changed. So now it's about finding, you know, where do you distill that like creative energy? Where do you get your best self back?
Well, I think relentless self-analysis, like I do question myself and like look beneath the hood of me a lot. But also just, where was I going with this? I can't remember. There was something I was going to say and then it got thrown off. So
something about getting it back and you were going to ask me how I did or something.
Well, I mean, that actually, I was going to go another direction, and then come back to that, but I don't remember what my other direction was. I wanted to, this is what I was going to say about getting it back was I've just started looking at like I know what it was. I was just going to say that I've been doing this long enough that I do understand that there's cycles. The first time this happens to a writer, it's scary. I mean, it's scary a little bit every time, but it's, for me, less scary each time because I just understand it's part of it. So even though I was kind of bummed out a couple of weeks ago, I knew it was a matter of getting through it and figuring out what was going on. So what I was doing is, if it's triggers that are causing me to not want to be in here writing, if it's triggers that are causing me not to write, because I know that I'm capable of doing it and enjoying it, I figured I just need to work on the triggers. So just as an example, I told Sean that if I had a working laptop and Robin didn't need it for her work, I would have tried going to a coffee shop or something, like just go somewhere else, or even into the living room, somewhere different. But the one thing I did do as an example is I used to always write to music. And that's something that, you know, we've talked about before, like lyrical music stuff that's kind of hard to write for a lot of people. And what happened is as I did more and more smarter artist work, it was a different part of my brain. And I really needed to stop and figure things out as opposed to being in flow. So I would notice lyrics. And so I started doing that to white noise. I wanted the door shut, metaphorically speaking. So I would put on my headphones and turn on white noise so that I couldn't hear crap on the other side of the house. And it became real easy to just always do white noise. And so I said a few episodes ago, I don't know if it was on this or whatever, that I had lost the ability to write to music. It felt that way. And so white noise, of course, that's another trigger. I sit down, I put these on, I listen to white noise. That's the thing I do for like boring stuff. And so I forced myself to start writing to music again. And so far that has helped. That has been like, okay, this is the go music. This is not boring. I mean, white noise, that says it all. Like, I don't want to live my life in white noise.
Dial tone.
But what did you do, Dave, to because it's like you got better, but we didn't hear what happened when you were working through it.
Going to music for a moment, I tend to listen to music all the time when I'm writing, but there are times when I'm like completely stressed out and I'm feeling it. I'm having panic attacks and anxiety. And sometimes the music is not conducive to that. And I actually listen to like ocean waves or rain, because it's less static, monotone sort of constant thing. It changes, but there's still a predictability and a pattern there that is soothing. And I find that helps, like when my mind is just complete chaos. As far as what I did here, I just forced myself to, sit down and make the time. And
I think you need to allow yourself permission to have that phase too. So like every time I sat down, I was like, I need to write 4,000 to 6,000 words. And then when I couldn't do it, it made me feel worse, not better.
Yeah. And there are days where like there are a few times during specifically White Space season 3 where, because I changed things because they needed to be changed, because I didn't feel that the outline worked for a few areas. And it also didn't take into account how some of the things that happened in the prior books would affect these people. So I needed to figure those things out. But when I'm figuring it out, it is harder to write and actually get a word count in. So there were a few days where I said, fuck it, I'm just going to figure this shit out. And when I'm figuring stuff out, I tend to do it not on a computer, but on paper. So I was just writing stuff out and trying to figure it out in my head. And there's a tactile thing with a pen and paper that helps me think better than just on computer screen.
Was it hard to give yourself permission to do that? Because I know when I do things that don't feel like writing new words, it's hard to give myself permission because it doesn't feel as productive as quote unquote I think it should be.
Well, it did bother me because I didn't want to fall behind deadline. I mean, I think there was already a week or two of cushion into where I would need to be for this anyway. So I knew I had a little bit of space and I wouldn't completely fall behind, but I was afraid that I would fall way behind and suddenly I'm doing like, just a marathon to catch up and all the words will suck because it's too much. That's always a concern. And I did that far more in the past than I did this time.
Yeah, this felt paced too. I could feel it in the writing. Yeah, I mean, just if we're talking about mood and how it affects the quality of the work too. I mean, I think this, Dave. The last couple of things I've said, I'm feeling a real timidity in your writing. I'm feeling like you're not real sure. You're not feeling good about yourself, and it's showing up in the copy. And I didn't feel that way at all with this. Like I felt this is the confident storyteller. This is the same guy I used to write with in 2012. Like he's feeling the story and the characters, and it's really confident. And I mean, 6 months before this was, I would say, Dave's storytelling low, which is the dead Christmas baby.
We'll just call that story that. Dead babies at Christmas.
Well, it'll become like put a unicorn in it. It'll become shorthand for, is this your dead baby?
Yeah. Right.
Quite literally, because that story may never come out.
No, I don't think it ever will. It really is like, this is reading a bit like a dead baby.
Pooped right on it to make sure that it never came. Oh, you want to publish this? Fuck you.
Yeah, it was I mean, even at Dave's low, the storytelling chops are there. You believe these people, you believe all of that stuff, but there's a way that Dave writes when he's not sure of himself versus when he's very confident. And this draft was confident. It was Dave at his, sitting in his storyteller seat, knowing what he's doing and feeling really good about it. And the energy of those words is different, and I can feel it. I know my storytelling partner. I can tell where his head is by what he's putting on the page. And it's really great to see strength in the story coming back, and it's been just a joy to see how much I know Dave has struggled over the last few years, and to have really brought it home and kind of wrestled his demons has been really great. And I told Johnny this. Actually, maybe I didn't tell you this, Johnny. This may have been something I said about you when you weren't around. But it's like his
abs ain't all that.
I don't feel any. I think I may have said this to you, Dave, actually, when we were talking. That I was talking about, Dave or Johnny's feeling a little bit low right now, and as far as his writing, and but we'll get through it. And tell me if I said this to you. I said I'm not worried.
Wait. Before you say it, I want to make sure we're clear who said it and to whom.
I said this to Dave, I think. But
we haven't talked about that much.
Dave,
so I just want to make sure we're clear.
Tell me if I'm wrong. All right. So did I say that I wasn't worried about Johnny professionally at all, even a tiny bit? I felt personally like I wanted to help him.
You said it to me.
So that's it. I don't feel any threat here. It's not like, okay, this is something that I'm worried about because there's professionally, we're going to miss these stories and we're not going to be able to miss our deadlines or any of that. Johnny's a performer. He self-optimizes. He'll get back on the horse. But as his friend, I'm concerned, not worried, or not even concerned might even be a big word, but it's I have presence of mind. I want to see him through this. Yeah. Empathetic. Yeah. I'm not worried. It will take care of itself, but I don't like seeing my friends suffer. And it's in the past with Dave, it's been different because I'm watching my friend suffer, but I'm also watching him professionally suffer. And I'm wondering when he's going to be able to pull himself out of that. And this period with Johnny isn't like that. I'm not worried whether he's going to pull himself out of it or, how it's going to be. I know it's going to be a little period of time where he's trying to adjust and find it, and then it will be back. And I also know this very confidently from my history with Johnny, that when he corrects something, it's like a bone that heals stronger than before.
Yeah, it tends to stay corrected. The thing about this is it's a snake that is eating its own tail. It's hard to hack the cycle because that confidence is systemic. So I've had a lot of trouble with the project that I was working on right before vacation that I was trying to fit in around all the smarter artist stuff. And it's the stupidest project to ever have any sort of trouble with. I was just trying to figure out the motivations, and it's just an absurd premise. It doesn't make any sense that would be a problem.
Space Shuttle too.
Very similar.
Very similar. You're on the right track.
Yeah. And so it didn't matter, basically. There's a lot of freedom within the story. And so I just needed to be zany and have fun. That was the whole idea, was to have fun. But what I'm recognizing now was probably the beginnings of this, because I wasn't confident, even though I didn't realize it wasn't confident. So normally I just walk in there and I just kind of swagger up to a story and I'm going to kick its ass. And there was none of that. It was well, does this make sense? I've done this enough. I know myself well enough, and I watch myself closely enough to recognize some of these signs if I was paying attention to them. Going back and reading stuff that I've already written, that's not something I do, but I was doing a lot of it. Going back and deciding, okay, I have a new seed now. I'm going to start from the beginning and just read through everything and seed it. No, I never do that either. Normally I start confidently and I just bulldoze through and I never look back. Distraction behaviors. So there's a lot of sort of things that if I can't control what's happening on the page, I will tend to want to go preferentially to something I can control. So that's just about anything else. So finding a reason to do something away from the computer, there's necessary breaks, and then there's, okay, dude, you're procrastinating. There's something here, but you don't necessarily notice it. So just becoming aware of my my own behaviors. Like when writing isn't going well, it's probably not just a bad day if it happens 3 or 4 days in a row, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And it's a matter of having the courage to stop, absorb your own behavior, and be honest enough with what you're doing to pivot, because you're not going to get those answers if you're telling yourself stories either.
Which is hard because figuring that out takes time. So the feeling is, I'm already behind. I'm already not performing. So I'm going to take time and go slower and figure this out. Like does not compute, right? It just feels like.
Yeah, we had this with one of our writers very recently, and that was exactly the issue. There was a confidence thing, and they were behind on something that needed to be delivered. And my recommendation was take more time, and they were kind of horrified with that as a recommendation. And that was the right recommendation. Look, you're not feeling centered on this. You need to take more time so that it can be. So not only are you getting the project done, but you have to solve the problem, because otherwise it's going to repeat. And I think that's the breakthrough that Dave and I finally had, was that we're not worried about getting this project done. We're worried about breaking the pattern so that it doesn't happen again. Because that's the thing. Like, it's not about getting this one book to market and, moving on to the next one. It's about being a whole person that can go to the desk and hit the projects over and over again. And I feel like, Dave really pushed through that in the last several months and has become somebody who understands himself better, understands his creative process better. And I don't think it's like Dave's never going to have this happen again. I think all three of us will, because we're human people and shit happens to us. And it'll probably
learn.
Right. It means the next time won't destroy him, because I think that's what's happened before, is that when Dave does suffer through some of these seasons, like summer, right? Mm-hmm. When he suffers through a season, it lasts 2, 3, 4 times longer than it needs to. Instead of just being a hiccup, it becomes something that he gets like submerged.
Throw up and you hold it in. Like sometimes it's better to just throw up.
Yeah, you've got to purge.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to be careful how I say this, but I think that this is, because there's going to be a literal way to take it, and then there's the way I actually mean it, which is, I think at least for me, I need to be okay with disappointing some people. So what I mean by that is, it's my own expectation that if I slow down, I'm disappointing Sean. If I don't deliver the words, or if for people who work solo, it might be their readers or your own internal expectations. And the story you were talking about with the other writer, I'm positive that's part of it too, is this sense of, I'm disappointing Sean right now. And if I take even more time, I'm going to be disappointing him even more. And then that's a vicious cycle. And so going, you know what? I'm disappointing somebody right now, and that's okay. Rather than being like, okay, well, now I got to prove myself. Now I got to be neurotic about it. I don't know if that makes any sense, because I don't actually think that I'm disappointing anyone, but it is an internal sense of forgiveness rather than spinning those wheels. That was finality. Do you see that?
Yeah, that was epic.
All right. Well, so then we'll conclude on this. Just in summary, for those of you who are frantically wringing your fingers and worried about me, I guess you don't wring your fingers, you wring your hands, worrying about me. It's coming back, like it'll be fine. But I thought that might be interesting to share, especially since I do have the reputation as being like,
oh yeah, I think it's very helpful. I think that, everybody feels this. And I think that people don't like to talk about it that much. And what did we come away with after one of the biggest takeaways, no kidding, from clocking out was people might need more therapy, right?
Yeah.
It's just like that simple, especially with, creative people who are diving deep within themselves to create stories. And that is emotional work. And so the better we know ourselves and the more emotional fitness we have, the better we can weather these seasons and create consistent quality work over time.
I found that like I follow like various writers and creators and social media and stuff. And I've noticed lately that a lot of people are talking about their failures and stuff, but it's usually after the fact, not during the fact. It's after they've course corrected, not while they're still in the throes of it. And I think it's a lot more difficult to talk about while you're in it because, well, for me anyway, I think there's a lot of self-loathing that comes with it, and you don't know where it's going to end. And
you're worried that you're going to just exacerbate it. It's going to be self-fulfilling.
Yeah, or you're going to come off like you're whining, and you got like people that like wish they had a job writing.
Right.
Why the hell is he whining? Like, fuck that. It's very difficult to talk about while you're in the throes of it, I think. And but I feel like the more you do talk about it, as long as you're taking action, that it is a healthy thing. Even, I mean, not necessarily with your audience or whatever, but with somebody that can help you see your
right. Don't just clam up. All right. So thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you on the next one.
Adios.
I did it again. I was actually pausing.
I was trying to see if I'd get that one in.
I was actually pausing.